Hello and welcome. Let's begin with talks may be last chance to free Gaza captives, says Blinken. Xi meets Vietnam's new leader for talks in Beijing. Russia's Shiveluch volcano erupts after magnitude 7.0 quake. Philippines, China reports ship collision in South China Sea. And Harris leads Trump in polls ahead of Democratic convention. Stay with me for these and more stories. On Israel-Gaza war, Antony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, pushing for a Gaza ceasefire on his visit to Israel, has described current negotiations as maybe the last chance to secure the captives' release and secure a ceasefire. On Monday, speaking in Tel Aviv before meeting Israeli President Isaac Herzog, the top U.S. diplomat said he was also working to escalate other regional tensions triggered by the war in Gaza. Blinken is scaling up U.S. diplomatic pressure to try and reach a truce to end the 10th Mo conflict after the United States put forward proposals last week in a bid to close the gaps between the warring parties. This is a decisive moment, probably the best, maybe the last opportunity to get the hostages home, to get a ceasefire and to put everyone on a better path to enduring peace and security, Blinken said on his 9th trip to the region since Israel's war on Gaza began in October. I'm here as part of an intensive diplomatic effort on President Biden's instructions to try to get this agreement to the line and ultimately over the line. It is time for everyone to get to yes and to not look for any excuse to say no, Blinken added. The U.S. and other Western allies have called on Iran and its allies to abstain from anticipated attacks on Israel in retaliation for the recent killings of senior members of Hamas and Hezbollah. The diplomat is later scheduled to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Herzog, who holds a mainly ceremonial role, said Israelis wanted to see the return as soon as possible as captives held in Gaza since Hamas snatched them during its October 7th attack. Israel's war began after Hamas's surprise attack. There is no greater humanitarian objective and there is no greater humanitarian cause than bringing back our hostages, Herzog told Blinken. The U.S., Egypt and Qatar have been acting as mediators in a number of indirect negotiations between Israel and Hamas. On Friday, the last round of talks ended in Qatar with no resolution. It is expected to recommence again in Cairo, Egypt this week. Hamas has been insisting that a ceasefire end the war permanently, while Israel has said any deal should not limit it from continuing the war despite repeated U.S. statements for the deal to end the conflict. In Gaza, meanwhile, Israel's deadly attacks continue with the death toll from Israel's bombardment now over 40,000, according to Palestinian health authorities. According to reports from Beijing, China's President Xi Jinping has held meetings with Vietnam's President To Lam in Beijing on his first state visit since becoming his country's top leader. The meeting between Xi and Lam on Monday indicates the close relations between the two communist-run neighbors, which have well-developed economic and trade ties despite occasional strains over their competing claims in the South China Sea. The visit comes just a month after Lam took over in Hanoi following the death of Vietnam's longtime Communist Party leader Nguyen Phu Trong. China displaying enthusiasm over Lam choosing China for his first official visit said last week. It fully reflects the great importance he attaches to the development of ties between both parties and countries. Wang Yi, China's top diplomat, greeted Lam and his wife upon arrival at the airport in Beijing. On Sunday, Lam arrived in China's southern Gansu province for a 3-day visit that will also include meetings with Premier Li Qiang and other top Chinese officials. While in Guangzhou, he visited some of the locations in China where former Vietnamese President Ho Chi Minh conducted revolutionary operations. Last December, when Xi visited Vietnam, China and Vietnam signed over a dozen deals. The agreement, specifics of which were not announced, covered strengthening a railway cooperation and development, investments in various fields, and establishing communication to handle unexpected incidents in the South China Sea. In a lengthy joint declaration, both countries said they will work on cross-border railway connectivity, naming 3 rail projects, including one connecting Montana's Lao Cai in Vietnam's northwest to the port of Haiphong. It also mentioned working on other projects under China's flagship infrastructure program, the Belt and Road Initiative, and emphasized investment cooperation in agriculture, infrastructure, energy, digital economy, green development, and other fields. China and Vietnam forged diplomatic ties in 1950 and formed a comprehensive strategic partnership of cooperation in 2008. That agreement was deepened 5 years later to include more international and regional issues of shared concern. Vietnam recently has also sought to improve its relations with the United States. Now, one of Russia's most active volcanoes has exploded, emitting plumes of ash 5 kilometers 3 miles into the sky over the far eastern Kamchatka Peninsula and briefly stoking a code red warning for aircraft. According to volcanologists from the Russian Academy of Sciences, the Shivalok volcano started popping shortly after a powerful 7.9 magnitude earthquake hit off Kamchatka's east coast early on Sunday. They cautioned that another, even more potent earthquake could be on the way. The Ibeko volcano, located on the Kuril Islands, also spewed ash 2.5 kilometers 1.5 miles high. The institute said it did not explicitly say whether the earthquake set off the eruptions. Code red ash cloud warning briefly put all aircraft in the area on alert, the Kamchatka volcanic eruption response team reported. A separate report on Sunday said that no commercial flights had been disrupted and there was no damage to aviation infrastructure. The tremors in the area may be a prelude to an even stronger earthquake in southeastern Kamchatka, Russian scientists warned. The Institute of Volcanology said a potential second quake could come within 24 hours with a magnitude approaching 9.0. According to Russian emergency officials, there were no immediate reports of injuries from Sunday's earthquake, which hit at a depth of 6 kilometers 7.3 miles under the seabed, with the epicenter 108 kilometers 67 miles southeast of the closest city. According to reports, a port city of over 181,000 people that sits across the bay from important Russian submarine base reporting of the strongest shaking in a long time. On November 4th, 1952, a magnitude 9.0 quake in Kamchatka caused damage, but no reported that despite setting off 9.1 meter 30-foot waves in Hawaii. In the disputed South China Sea, ships from China and the Philippines have collided during a confrontation, with each blaming the other for the incident. The collision took place at 3:24 a.m. local time on Monday at Sabina Shoal, which lies about 140 kilometers 86 miles west of the Philippine island of Palawan, the closest major landmass. Gan Yu, China Coast Guard spokesperson, accused the Philippines of illegally entering the waters around the disputed atoll and intentionally colliding with the Chinese ship. The Spratlys, also claimed by Brunei, Malaysia, Taiwan and Vietnam, lie over 1,300 kilometers 808 miles from China's Hainan Island. Manila's National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea disputed the Chinese account. It said it was China that was at fault and that Beijing's vessels were conducting unlawful and aggressive maneuvers close to the shore, causing damage to 2 of its Coast Guard ships. The confrontation resulted in collisions, causing structural damage to both Philippine Coast Guard vessels, it said. Manila said the Coast Guard vessels Cape Igano and Bakake were on their way to resupply personnel station on Flat Island when the collision took place, as well as the destroyed to the Cape Engano. It said the Bakake was struck twice to both port and starboard by a Chinese coastal vessel, which resulted in minor structural damage. The statement said the PCJ stands firm in its responsibility to ensure the safety and security of our maritime domain while addressing any threats to our national interests. Tensions have been growing between Manila and Beijing, which claims almost the whole South China Sea under its so-called 9-dash line, despite an international court ruling in 2016 that it was without merit. The Sabina Shoal collision comes less than 2 weeks after an air incident between the Chinese and Philippines militaries in Scarborough Shoal, which Beijing seized from Manila in 2012. Meanwhile, on U.S. 2024 election, opinion polls shows Kamala Harris, United States Vice President, is leading ex-President Donald Trump as she gets ready for her headline moment at the Democratic National Convention, DNC. On the eve of the convention in Chicago, Harris holds a lead of between 3 and 6 percentage points in the race for the White House, 2 opinion polls showed on Sunday. Harris is ahead of Trump by 49 to 45% among registered voters and 51.45% among possible voters in two-way race, according to a report. In a five-way race that includes Robert F. Kennedy, Cornel West, and Jill Stein, Harris leads Trump 47 to 44% among registered voters and 49 to 45% among likely voters. According to a poll, Harris is 3 points ahead nationally, leading Trump 51 to 48%. In the 7 battleground states considered key to the outcome of the election, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina, Harris and Trump are tied 50-50. The polls are the newest sign that Harris's late entry into the race has energized Democrats and Democratic-leaning voters after months of poor polling for President Joe Biden, who dropped his re-election bid last month amid concerns about his fitness to serve a second term. On Saturday, a New York Times Louisiana College poll showed Harris in contention in the Sun Belt states of Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina, which had been leading heavily towards Trump when Biden was the Democratic nominee. Before heading to Chicago on Sunday, Harris held many campaign events in Pennsylvania, whose 20 electoral votes flipped from Trump to Biden in 2020. Speaking at a campaign in Pennsylvania a day earlier, Trump criticized Harris on inflation and her former opposition to fracking, which is popular in the state, while also launching a series of personal attacks. While Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, were officially nominated in a roll call vote earlier this month, the 4-day convention that kicks off on Monday will give Democrats an opportunity to display unity and drum up enthusiasm among voters. On more stories and on Ukraine-Russian war, Ukraine strikes second bridge in Kursk ice buffer zone. Ukraine says it has demolished a second bridge across the river Sem, which winds through Russia's Kursk region. It is the second raid on a bridge in the region in a matter of days and comes as Ukraine presses a cross-border offensive that started on August 6th. It said it had hit a bridge in the Russian town of Gloshkovo on Friday, minus one more breach, Ukrainian Air Force Commander Mykola Oleshchuk said on Sunday, adding that the attacks were designed to disrupt Russian supply lines. Hours after the attack, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky praised the military's incursion and stated its aim for the first time. Pro-Kremlin military bloggers acknowledged the destruction of the first bridge close to Gloshkovo, which is around 12 kilometers, 7.5 miles north of the Ukrainian border, saying it will disrupt supply lines. Zavono is located a further 8 kilometers, 5 miles to the northwest. According to reports, the attacks left only one bridge in the area unbroken, potentially complicating further Moscow's efforts to replenish its forces and evacuate civilians. Until now, Kyiv has said little about the aims of the surprise incursion, which started with tanks and other armored vehicles, the biggest attack on Russians since World War II. Last week, Ukraine's military chief Alexander Syrsky claimed that his forces had advanced 1,000 square kilometers of Kursk, although it was not possible to independently verify the extent of its control. In African scenes, aid workers warn of worsening humanitarian crisis in Sudan. Aid workers working with people who have fled Sudan to neighboring Chad have signaled over a waning humanitarian situation in the Darfur region of Sudan, where war has created conditions approaching famine. Tamam Aludat, who works for Doctors Without Borders (MSF) in South Darfur, returned from a mission in Nyala last week and spoke of the starvation crunch impacting the region. Aloudat said he hopes the authorities' announcement this week of the reopening of the Adre border crossing will mean more United Nations aid can reach hard-hit areas, but that many obstacles still remain. He said recent rains had led to the collapse of a key bridge in South Darfur, making it near impossible for large amounts of aid to reach the area. Fighters from Sudan's paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, most recently rampaged through a central village, looting and burning and killing at least 85 people, including women and children, authorities and residents said Saturday, the newest atrocity in the country's 18-month devastating conflict. Late in July, the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces started attacking Galgani in the central province of Sena, and last week, RSF fighters indiscriminately opened fire on the village's unarmed residents after they resisted attempts to abduct and sexually assault women and children and girls, Sudan's foreign ministry said in a statement. Over 150 villagers were wounded, according to the ministry. Now, Malawi opposition backs Peter Mutharika as flag bearer. The Democratic Progress Party, Malawi's major opposition, has endorsed ex-president Peter Mutharika, 84, as its candidate for the 2025 presidential election. Mutharika, who led the country from 2014 to 2020, promised to fix the economy, which has battled with slow growth and currency shortages. He will face incumbent President Lazarus Chakwera, who is seeking a second term. Mutharika also plans to ally with the United Transformation Movement, though the party has yet to confirm the partnership. He lost his re-election bid in 2020 to Lazarus Chakwera, an anti-corruption crusader. The election was a repeat vote after the country's top court quashed the results of the May 2019 exercise, which gave Mutharika and his Democratic Progressive Party DPP victory. In 2021, Mutharika accused the present government of politically persecuting him. In August 2020, Malawi's Anti-Corruption Bureau ACB froze the personal bank accounts of Mutharika and his wife Gertrude in a probe seeking to uncover his role in a 5 billion kwacha, $6.6 million cement scandal. We take a short break, and when we come back, more stories, particularly from Nigeria. Don't go anywhere. You're welcome back. Now, stories from Nigeria. We begin with Nigeria faces fuel scarcity as petrol hits 1,000 naira per litre. The piercing scarcity of petroleum motor spirit PMS, and also known as petrol, which had hit the Federal Capital Territory FCT Abuja since over 1 month, became more severe at the weekend and spread nationwide, with fuel queues on a scale not seen in recent times, and the product selling for over 1,000 naira per litre. In some places, the scarcity led to disruption of commercial and social activities at the weekend in Abuja and the country's commercial capital of Lagos, as well as Kaduna, Kano, Port Harcourt, Niger, Nasarawa, and many other states. Many filling stations shut down their operations due to the extreme undersupply of PMS. Although Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) had said the shortages were caused by distribution challenges, it did not specify the cause of the present surge in price, which had lingered in Abuja and environs for over 4 weeks. But NNPC did not report that it was indebted to international oil traders to the tune of $6.8 billion and that it had not remitted revenues to the Federation account since January, among other allegations. In Lagos, the present petrol scarcity assumed an alarming dimension, with most of the major filling stations closed, while a few that opened for business were flooded by long human and vehicular queues that stretch along major roads. According to reports in Rivers State and across local government areas and communities, show that a litre of petrol has skyrocketed from 700 naira to between 880 naira and 900 naira per litre. While some of the major marketers, including Owando and Conoil, sold at 900 naira, other independent marketers sold between 870 naira and 888 naira. NNPC sold at 591 naira per litre, but with long queues. And finally, on the news on climate crisis, flood in 10 states may worsen food crisis. Following the floods that have ravaged farmland in the northern part of the country, agricultural experts and big-time players in the agro-allied industry have sounded the alarm over an impending food crunch across the country as agricultural fortunes dip in the north. The experts insist that unless critical and very drastic measures are quickly taken, the crisis may worsen as floods continue to ravage farmlands in the northern states. According to report, 10 states, namely Kaduna, Kano, Jigawa, Nasarawa, Taraba, Bauchi, Zamfara, Yobe, Sokoto, and Kebbi, are highly affected following heavy rainfall in the region. According to more reports, probes showed that continuous rainfall across the region pose a threat to grains and farmlands, which could lead to a poor harvest and hunger as farmers battle the scourge of drought. As a result of the effect of the twin threat of flood and drought, some farmers in Kano State, particularly those within the 14 local government areas that are at a high risk of flooding as predicted by the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, have continued to express fears about possible flooding in the state and have started praying against flooding as rainfall persists across the 44 local government areas. An official of the State Emergency Management Agency, who spoke on condition of anonymity, confirmed on Saturday that even though the agency has yet to receive the comprehensive report on the flood from our assessment team, we are very worried about the situation, but we cannot act without any official report. A recap of major stories says talks may be last chance to free Gaza captives, says Blinken. Xi meets Vietnam's new leader for talks in Beijing. Russia's Shivolok volcano erupts after magnitude 7.0 earthquake. Philippines-China reports ship coalition in South China Sea, and Harris leads Trump in polls ahead of Democratic convention. That's all on the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great week ahead. Bye for now.